happy working, actually, people don't know this, but the beauty industry is a pretty financially robust business. You get in, you have somebody who's not feeling good about themselves. Within 2 hours, between talking to them, raising their spirit, making them feel and look better, I've done something in that time that I'm proud of. I'm happy. They're happy. It's good.
Welcome to the Engineered Success Podcast, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, business leaders, and people just like you and me who are on the journey to understanding what success is for them and the best path to get there. Today, I'm excited to be joined with Rebecca in the studio, and we're going to be diving into her story and exactly that. What is success for her, and what has her journey been to get her to where she's at today? So, Rebecca, welcome to the studio, and thanks for coming in.
Wow, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so, we're here. I'm excited to obviously dive into your background and your story and a little bit about what you're up to today. So why don't we step way back, to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of where you were born and a little bit about your family dynamics.
Okay, well, I am a native Michigander. I was born in Southfield, Michigan, way back in 1972. I have had a pretty unconventional childhood. I was born to very young parents. My mom had, both my brother and I were Irish twins by the time she was 20. And our life was very exciting with a young mom who was very dynamic. And unfortunately, early in life, my father left my mom with the two of us. And so we started very humbly. I mean, very humbly. We were very poor, team of three. And we had to struggle and survive and had to find ways to get through some tough times together. I had wonderful grandparents. My mom's mom and dad were wonderful. I had aunts and uncles that were very supportive. But at the core, it was the three of us finding a way to get through life. Albeit we had a lot of good times doing it early on. I remember having to realize that life was going to push at me, and I knew I had to push back. And I think that all that we go through from birth through the end of life is, for me, my belief is that it's one big lesson and it's one big exciting journey. And I think you've heard this threaded through all your podcasts, that the struggles make you stronger. And so it was going to be that kind of a life I was facing from an early child. And so, it was, I remember my first memory of my mom was we were in a house that was probably the size of this room. It was a hot summer day. And my mom was very into transcendental meditation. And she was sitting in her lotus position with a white sheet over her head, trying to herself into a different reality, But the reality was 2 kids to take care of. And so she taught dance. She was in commercials. She did some modeling, was always very creative. We were always put in a situation of creativity, showmanship. And she embedded in my brother and I that we could really do anything. She had us doing these dances and all kinds of things and didn't really limit us as to what we could be in the world. Financially, we were definitely limited. But in the way of who we could be, she didn't limit us. And I think that early on instilled me this I can do things attitude, even though in reality, in the way that we were structured, it didn't look like we were going to do much. But in the end of it all, we have all come to be, successful in our own way.
Oh, that's awesome. You're already kind of tying in the end of the story to the beginning of the story. And it's what I love to just better understand is the examples that you were provided and given and what kind of situation you had to find yourself when you were young and how to overcome or what you observed and what you were able to take away from the way you mentioned your mom was dynamic, right? And you gave a little bit of her ways of handling different situations and how she, had different jobs and different roles that she was doing. And she instilled in you that you can do do whatever you put your mind to, and you really work at it, even if, the situation doesn't, appear that that's possible. So how were some ways that, early on you're getting into, elementary school, you're kind of starting those first, educational experiences and things like that. How was that for you? Like, did you have a situation that you were able to take some of those skills or things that you observed from your mother into your education early on?
Early education, we went to a public school early in life, and then eventually my mom remarried and we had means. And so we ended up in Catholic school most of the rest of my schooling. It wasn't so much that. It was in that time of frame, I remember just needing to kind of survive in a way. My mom was gone a lot, so we were often in the hands of other people or my grandparents, which was always a blessing because I had an equally dynamic grandfather who had passion for innovation in the city of Detroit. So that definitely instilled some of what I'm working with today in my soul. Survival. There were days where my brother and I would have to walk up. We lived in a neighborhood, so if you're not from Detroit, you won't know what this means, but there was a Coney Island at the edge of our neighborhood. And independent of the weather, we'd often walk up there and we'd sit down in the restaurant and the owner would feed us. And early on, I learned that I just had to ask. So I would ask for food and I didn't even think I was being humble in doing so. It was just a necessity. So we would sit down, and if the waitress didn't know who we were, she'd give us each a hot dog and fries and a vanilla shake, which was such a treat. And it would be on the house. But I was a self-proclaimed very early on vegetarian. I didn't want to eat meat. So I'd push the hot dog to my brother and I would simply ask for a grilled cheese sandwich and it would be provided. And I often think back on that, of the grace that I received from people like the owner of this Coney Island, who would see us coming in and he would feed us without even a second thought, and how that impacted me in life of, I'm going to give whatever gifts God gives me. I will give if I can, whenever I can, and the grace of letting someone give. I'm a big believer in it's not just the recipient, it's the giver. And there's actually a really interesting study about that exact process, and wherein they took the serotonin levels, they take a look at it, right? So I give you something, your serotonin increases, but mine increases equally. But if there's a witness to the giving and the receiving, do you know that their serotonin is actually higher than both of ours? And so I start to think about early childhood and the humble beginnings and the rough start and the resistance. And it didn't just stop with early childhood. My mom remarried and there was strong resistance. And resistance, as if you're lifting weights, the resistance of the weights, it builds you, it builds your character, it builds your strength. You're either not going to go to the gym and lift those weights, or you're going to go and you're going to get stronger. And through life, that was the choice I made. I'm going to get stronger, I'm going to push, and I'm going to just keep being resilient through resistance. And I can't remember much about the early schooling, but I did end up in an all-girls Catholic school, private Catholic school. When I arrived, I felt completely like a fish out of water, and all these young ladies had been prepped for success, where I felt like I was kind of just trying to catch up. And so it put me in a world of highly successful young ladies, in an environment of empowering women, in an environment of you can do anything. I like theater. I like singing. I was able to be in all these plays. And that's when it clicked for me. Like, okay, like this is good. I can build here. And I did begin to build there. And I do. I think that this childhood that I had was not idyllic in any way. And I wouldn't change it for anything. And I wouldn't begrudge my parents for anything, because I truly believe that the parents that we receive in this lifetime teach us what we need. And we can take it or leave it. They're not perfect. I'm a parent. I'm far from perfect. If you're a parent, you have your moments where you do your best, but you're learning too, right? I always say there's no adults. We're all on the journey. So a parent, a situation that's not ideal actually can really be ideal, because if you use it for your growth and you use it and see what you can get out of it and give back, it's actually a gift.
No, you unpacked a lot there, and I
sure
really
did.
appreciate
I'm a fast
it.
talker.
No, yeah, and there's a lot of things that we could go down based on all the different ways that you described those early years and some of the different experiences that you had, and maybe the why you picked up, the challenge and accepted that and said, "Hey, let's go, let's make it happen." Because as you got into that all girls school, you noticed like, "Hey, maybe I didn't come into this with the same type of experiences that they had, but maybe I can use that to my strength and get creative." And you made that decision. Now you mentioned that you said I made that decision, and then earlier you said maybe a little bit out of necessity. But can you tell me a little bit about that decision process and maybe what caused you to, from your experience, make that decision? Like, why did you decide that, hey, this is going to be tough, but I'm going to do it anyway? When some people do, just back down and just say, hey, whatever happens, happens.
I actually think it's the spirit God put in me. I can't attribute it to one thing other than I know there's greatness within every human being that walks this earth. And I know that many of us struggle. You're very lucky if you haven't met a challenge in life, and you will one day, right? For me, it wasn't really a decision, moreover of this is what these gals have, I want. I can do what they can do. I didn't come from where they're coming from. A lot of them, I'm generalizing. There's a whole culture there, many cultures there. But why waste the greatness that's been put in us? And we each have greatness. It's just sometimes gets sent to the side or shifted or something overrides it. And I didn't want that to happen. Plus, I am born in Aries. I have Italian in my blood, and I don't know what it is. If a wave comes, I'll stand right back up. And it's been that way my whole life. And unfortunately and fortunately, it has been a lot of resistance. So I just wouldn't lay down to it. And therefore, I have some wonderful things coming out of that. So, yeah, when I pushed back. And from that, I had great experience early in school. I have still friends to this day. Matter of fact, the COO of our company, one of the most brilliant businesswomen I know, she's one of my friends from our singing days in high school, who came from a completely different background that I did. Went to her house and they had a dinner and it was all set with china and there was a big piano. And it was the first time I ever saw anything like that, But it all, I'm sure she's had her challenges, but, it just was just my journey, my path. And here I am today.
Yeah, motivating for you. I know it's been said about me, and I've said it about myself in the past too, that sometimes I'm just too stubborn to give up on things. And it's like, when you look at it, it's like, man, Steven, you should have given up on that. You should have given up on that. And then, something happens, right? So sometimes it is, understanding that challenge really is the valley that you need to get through to get to the other side, and you need to really push through. And if you don't, you might end a little bit early. And I think a lot of people that are watching this are, in the middle of maybe something like that, where they're feeling that resistance, or they're feeling something within their journey that's like, hey, I don't know if it's really worth it to keep going and to keep the work into what I'm trying to achieve. But just from even what you're saying early on, you realize that it's going to be hard no matter what. Let's jump in and make it happen and get the most that we can out of it.
Absolutely. And there's fails along the way. And in those people that you're speaking of that may be listening, where they're just not sure, do I stop or do I stop right before the big boom? That's always a fear. There's always the opportunity to rest. There's always an opportunity to downshift, clear your mind, take a minute. Nothing happened. No success happens overnight. Unless you're winning that 750 lottery that I saw on the way here. Nothing happens overnight. You can take a rest. You can also take a pivot. An entrepreneur starting something like I did with my company, you can pivot. It's a growth. If you can look at it like this race, you're cheering. Everyone's like, yeah, get started. And then at the end, they're cheering for you. But if you're in that middle zone, you are tired and you don't know. Like you said, do I give up? Do I keep going? Where am I at with this? Am I too stubborn? Is this a dumb idea? Rest. Take account into everything. Vet this idea. Can I make this happen? Is this going to be able to be made in a way that I can get margins where it can sell? Is there really an audience that wants what I'm doing? Take a minute, step back, And I think that's one of the most powerful things we can always do in anything, not just in business. Step back, rest, take a look, take an evaluation, do the measures. Is this a successful thing? Could this be successful? Am I just too stubborn? I love stubborn, by the way. Stubborn is a superpower, because stubborn doesn't mean maybe not in relationships as a superpower, but in entrepreneurship, it's a power, because you have to be very passionate and believe very deeply in what you're doing when other people aren't cheering there, because you're, not quite to the finish line yet. So, common stubbornness, right? Stubbornness that is bedded in not only my passion, but this actually is something that could end up being something.
Mm. As you're thinking about rest and you're thinking about stepping back and taking the breaks, it has me kind of thinking of, when do you know the right time to do that is? Is it something that you put into, all right, once a quarter, this is something that I schedule out and I intentionally have clarity breaks that I step aside and I take a day to, refresh on, my vision and these things? Is it something I do weekly? Is it just something when I feel stressed out or I'm hitting the wall and I'm feeling that resistance hit to a certain level that I'm like, okay, now is the time to just step away tomorrow? Is it something that you think should be put into the calendar, or just based on energy?
Such a good question. And it's something I've been reflecting on a lot, because when you are a startup founder and you have built a team and you have investors and you are just feeling like you're on this wheel, you can't stop, you got to go 24/7, you will not succeed. I just read a book and they were talking about the American culture and how we actually will say, I didn't sleep at all. I work so much, I hardly ever sleep. And that actually turns out to be such a negative for us. We need sleep. We can success optimally on that, so it's part of our culture to not rest. So I was thinking about that after I read that and thought, sometimes I want to work out, or I want to go for a walk, or I want to do these things, but I don't make it like it's a doctor's appointment in my book, where maybe we should do that, because we as entrepreneurs and founders and innovators, we have to be physically, mentally strong, well rested. So I like your idea of maybe baking it into the schedule. It's something I've been thinking about doing. For me, when I've had to take those pauses, it was always before I thought major catastrophe was going to strike. And I thought, oh no, something's not going to happen in the right way here. And then step away from it, leave your laptop at home. My company, the product is called Swick. I just don't want to ever hear the word Swick for 24 hours, things like that. And you get clarity. Whether you have to pray, meditate, walk, work out, watch a numb-minding show, clarity can come in just stepping away. But I like the idea of baking it into a schedule.
Yeah, that's what I've called that. Yeah, we'll call them clarity breaks, and literally just step aside and just with, offsite pad of paper and just, sit down and ask yourself some serious questions around your path. Like, hey, how do I feel things are? What's my energy level and different things, and try and do it on a schedule. So I know we've gotten into some of the topics that, we intended to get into, but we're still, back at all girls school and middle school, high school. Time frame. Tell me about what's next after high school.
So unconventional yet again. I went to a high school that was a college prep school. I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the gals all went to college and went to do wonderful, great, amazing things in this life. And I did not. I decided that I was going to move to Europe. I had an opportunity to be a nanny, and I thought, okay, I'll try that. I did not have this drive to go to college for some reason. I didn't feel that I wanted to do that at that time. I didn't know what I wanted to do or anything like that. So where everyone else was going, I felt like a big failure by not, but I didn't. And I started in Germany, and then I ended up not nannying after a while because they went back home, but I stayed and I was studying languages, and I learned to speak German and Spanish and French while I was there, and I traveled, and I often wonder, how did I afford that? But I remember living very, very, again, I guess I was used to not having super high expectations, but stayed for quite a while, a couple years, and learned, saw the world. I remember coming home and feeling like massive culture shock. Like I just had this major experience and everyone else is staying the same. And by the time I got home, my college colleagues or my high school colleagues were graduating college, and I still felt lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I was very unsure. By this point, my mom had divorced my stepdad. And when I got home, there was no money for me to go to college anyway. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. But I'm a very creative person and just really felt lost, totally lost, and actually like a massive failure. Didn't have, my friends were graduating from these big schools. Now we're back to being financially strapped. I just was like, wow, this was just a snapback to the past. And of all things, I was out to lunch with a friend, and her friend was managing a beauty school. And I went in with her so she could say hi to him. And he just looked at me and said, I could sign you up, and, it doesn't cost that much, and you could do this. And I thought, okay. I didn't know what else to do. I said, okay. And I love creativity. And I did that. And I ended up having an incredible career in the beauty industry, working in a salon in a highly affluent area, and built a clientele of the city's movers and shakers. And I still do it to this day, even though I'm building another medical device company, because it gives me the ability to give. I just don't do hair. I have this little salon that has created a community of trust, friendship, love, networking. And I have a group of men and women who are all fused together by me being that conduit that got them all together, or keeps them all together. And then, some people think, doing hair is just such a meaningless job, and that always offends me, because one, you can't take your hair off, right? It's a big part of who you are. But two, for me, it's been almost a vocation to be able to show people their beauty, not only inner, but outer, be there when they're having storms in their lives. You see your hairdresser every 4 to 5 weeks, and my people do, and growing in life with them and creating this network that otherwise I'd never get the chance to do. So I'm proud of that part of what I do, because I know I've helped people so much in that career. And it's been actually a very fun business for me to be in. So that was not a common thing for a gal to graduate from the school I graduated from, but that's the path I took.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And I'm glad to hear that even, in some of the scenarios you found yourself in, you still found a way to, give back and to build community. And that is awesome. Now I want to back up a little bit. You mentioned that you had the chance to become a nanny and do some world travel, right? And I think that, there's a lot of people that are like, wow, that sounds amazing, right? I would love that opportunity to do world travel, to learn all these different languages, to get to experience different cultures and do all of that. But then you mentioned that when you came back, you felt lost, or you had this certain feeling that you felt a little bit behind compared to your friends. Why do you think that is?
Well, because it was unconventional, which again, I remember starting off saying it wasn't conventional, and I wouldn't result with a degree and a career and, this college experience that we are programmed to do, and especially in that community that I was in. And it was kind of a gypsy type of a thing to do. And so it didn't quite fit with what I thought I was supposed to do. But it was very fulfilling, and I highly recommend it, by the way. And then it left me also with, now what? But I guess now I have a daughter graduating Michigan State this year, and she's on the job search right now. And she's brilliant on the dean's list, but she's, nothing is a guarantee, right? So I guess it just made me feel that I took an unconventional path, and maybe you're triggering something for me. It kind of went back to how I was raised unconventionally. And so maybe that's why I felt like it wasn't acceptable, or something in it didn't sit well with me.
Do you feel like the culture or, the stigma around that has changed? Now you're experiencing this with your daughter, right? She's, going through school and, on the job hunt and things like that. Do you feel like it's maybe more accepted now to be doing, world travel and things like that after school? Is it still, you mentioned cookie cutter, kind of doing the path that you're programmed to do as you get through school? Like, is it similar now as it was when you experienced, or aren't you sure if there's differences today?
I think it depends on where you're coming from, where you're being reared out of and into that path into college. I think that people should be looking at alternatives to going directly into college. I think we're in a time of unprecedented change with AI and things that are coming about where none of us know what security is in jobs and career. And I think trades, being a tradesperson, I think trades are wonderful. I wish that the stigma would dissolve away from trades. We need them. They may be resilient against the AI movement. But I would hope for everyone that whatever their path is, if you want to become a hairdresser, if you want to become a mom, if you want to become a dog trainer, whatever it is, this is what I believe truly about things. And as we dig into what I'm doing with Swick Medical, if you have passion, follow that. No matter what it is, if you are passionate about becoming a housekeeper or a physician, that passion is what you're going to need to sustain everything. And I always say passion equals profit. If you have passion and you show that passion, you bring people to you because people like passionate people, right? We like to see somebody who's passionate about anything. So I would say, I hope it changes. I think it might be a little bit. I think the job market is so insecure for the young college student coming out that it may open eyes to other avenues. But if anything, whatever you're passionate about, follow that. Yeah.
Yeah. What you're passionate about, follow that. And then, you mentioned that when you came back, you felt like a little bit behind or a little bit different. And maybe that's okay, right? And just understanding that not everyone's passionate about the same thing. Not everyone has the same experiences going into that. What made you passionate about that? And, sometimes we look around and compare ourselves to others, but, at the end of the day, they're on their journey, you're on yours. And are you, working towards your level of success for you?
That is perfectly said.
Now, as you're, getting into your career and you're starting this, you mentioned not hairdressing, but you're getting into beauty and care in that area. What were some of the things that you enjoyed about that or that you're passionate about at that stage?
Absolutely, bar none, passionate about making people feel good about themselves. Love creativity with my hands. I am a believer that if you're not happy or sad, get out and do something with your hands, woodwork, paint. For me, it's hairdressing. There's something to that. I think it's an ancient thing where we're made to create. And maybe, coming from an engineer background, you're creating, right? But actually tactile creating, even if it's gardening or mowing the lawn, anything, so I love doing that. And I love things that are quick results. That's why doing a medical device company has been a challenge because instant change, right? You get in, you have somebody who's not feeling good about themselves. Within 2 hours, between talking to them, raising their spirit, making them feel and look better, I've done something in that time that I'm proud of. I'm happy. They're happy. It's good. It's, and so I enjoy that. And I enjoy fast pace. I'm a fast person. So that quick, always seeing somebody new, that the ever changing of this job, I really enjoy.
Now, you took that as more than just, making someone look better, but you wanted to make them feel better too. You mentioned conversations and things like that. I know I just like to cut my own hair because I don't like to have the conversations, but when I go, it's like, it is part of, the experience. And you went at it intentionally and you said, hey, I want to help this person leave here better than the way that they came. Why did you care so much about that? Why did you care so much about that?
It's just in me. I think, again, no parents under the bus, but, I didn't receive a lot of that. I did get it from my grandparents, but it's important to me. It's important to me. I think, they say that caregiver people, they give the care they want, that kind of a thing. It's just important to me. It's the way my heart is. It's the way I am in general, and it's just very important to me. It's just innate in me, I guess.
Now, as you were making some of these decisions throughout your career and, deciding to travel and different scenarios, did you have other people in your life that you consider mentors or people that you would go to and ask advice from? Or is most of these decisions that you made like things that you kind of did on your own?
Hyperly independent. Really, my biggest life mentor and kind of hero was my mom's father, my grandfather, Italian descent, very passionate about the city of Detroit, taught me about innovation early on. He was part of making the carousel at Greenfield Village in Dearborn. Well, if you've been to Greenfield Village, that's all about innovation. So learning about that early on, just a very steady, solid man who worked hard, a very American, passionate about the country, flew planes in the war, just real big role model for me. So I consider him my life's biggest mentor. And my other cornerstone of life was a mentor we can't see, which is just my faith. I believe that, God has put us on these journeys and we will meet and grow with all these different things and people. But it was between those two things, I think, that I relied on the most. But my independence is something that I've always had. And so I don't always completely trust my decisions. I hem and haw quite a bit. But at the end of the day, I make my decisions with myself and God now. My grandfather's unfortunately passed.
And thanks for, walking through that and talking about your grandfather in that way, and that he was that role model for you and some of the things that he had the ability to experience and show to you through his time here. And as you're looking back and thinking through, you've talked a little bit about, a medical device. We've hinted at some of the stuff you're doing today, and then where we left off in your story. Can you help fill the gap a little bit about, cosmetology, what you were doing, and then what got you to doing the medical device that you're doing today?
Yeah. So happy actually, people don't know this, but the beauty industry is a pretty financially robust business. I was doing quite well, started my family, and prior to starting my family, I had an illness and I had treatment for the illness, and it was I'm totally fine now, but it was a cancer. And to treat this, you had to have a little bit of radioactive iodine. And there was a little bit of a side effect from that. And I was okay. And I, kind of took it as a bump in the road. And again, life is pushing, I'm pushing back. So I just kept on going and all fine and good. And then I had as I started my family during my second pregnancy, I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And the same problem that was a symptom of the treatment for the head and neck cancer became the problem with this autoimmune disease, which was the inability to make saliva, which is just crazy, right? So this experience I had with my own symptom from treatment and an autoimmune disease forced me into, didn't force me into. I, being uber creative, was laying there in bed one night thinking, I can't stand this. This is horrible. This I can't live the rest of my life like this. And I developed a product for the head and neck cancer population that have severe and chronic dry mouth. And I didn't really realize what that would mean or how intense of a process that would be. I just was thinking, well, this is not okay. And I'm one of 30 million people that have this. Well, this is like, we're going to fix this. And so kind of that's how the journey started. I was raising my family and still working full time and poking around at this medical device that I decided I was going to create.
And you mentioned laying in bed and, feeling like, oh man, this isn't good and you can't sleep. And earlier we talked a little bit about the importance of your health and your sleep. And especially as a business owner and you're, trying to manage the family and the business and all the different things without the energy, that makes that next to near impossible. But you were trying to work
was younger
through all
then,
that.
though.
Yeah. Try to make it happen. Huh? And so maybe it was a little bit easier. I don't know. But like at the end of the day, you still need your sleep and you still need your health to be able to do that. So that was a difficult time. Now, as you're thinking back through that, obviously it's led towards this business, and we'll get into that. But like, there were probably times when you really, had to sit down and work through, some struggles, and like, were there things or processes, books or things in your life that you can think back to? I mean, you mentioned faith a couple of different times.
Faith is huge, exercise, nutrition, all those things. But you're right. When you're a mom and you're raising kids and you're working full time, and then I started kind of poking around at getting myself a second job with this device. It was tiring. I have a high energy level. I have the ability. God planted also in me the ability to multitask quite well. And so I kind of thrive on busyness. And sincerely, I was younger. So and I'm also blessed by the fact that I did have always a bit of a current flowing towards me. So I was used to the resistance. I was used to kind of walking towards the wake. And so I didn't look at it like that. And I actually still don't look at it like that. I look at it like a challenge and a really worthwhile one. The older I get, the more tired I get. And the longer I've been at this, this hasn't been a quick process, because as we talked about pivoting, I actually pivoted the whole company, the whole concept. As we get into the story more, I pivoted the whole thing. So when I think back on how long this has been, how long I'm in the middle of this race, and nobody's really cheering except for my 3 kids and a few good friends, it does become tiring. But back then I don't think I knew what I know now. So I didn't really look at it like that. I looked at it like you, I can do this. I'm stubborn. I got this. And that's how I was looking at it back then.
Yeah, I've approached some things with naive optimism, right? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So like, what's the problem? It's probably going to be end of the day
it.
today. Yeah, it's going to be done.
No problem.
It wasn't, but it's going to happen the next time.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. And, there is something to be said about just putting your head down and just saying, hey, I made this decision. I'm going to make it happen. It's difficult. That's a difficult decision to make in the middle of it, right? Sometimes we look back and we're smiling and laughing about how we worked through it and we made that decision that we were going to push through it no matter what. But in that time, it was hard and it was difficult. And, there's sometimes when it's like, hey, I just, trying to find the places to go to get answers. And so if you're looking online or if you're, jumping on the treadmill, you mentioned nutrition and exercise, which I think are huge. I know it's been said, coached into me, exhaust the body, tame the mind. And it's like such a real thing is like, I can't sleep at night. It's probably because I didn't work out or didn't go for a run or didn't do something, especially, having a desk job and sitting behind the computer and, thinking about things a lot more than actually moving. Yeah. Getting your body moving, going to the gym or doing things like that really help you rest your mind a little bit too, right?
You're absolutely right. I love what you said. Yeah, I'm going to use that.
Perfect. I'm using it from someone else. So yeah, it works well. Okay. So as you're, facing some of these challenges, you're uncovering this opportunity for this business, you're laying in bed and you're saying, hey, there's a lot of other people that are also potentially experiencing what I'm experiencing. Someone's got to fix this. So you're starting to do a little research. You're looking around, what's next? How did that next step happen for you?
I'm also a huge believer in the law of attraction and the power of just energy attracts energy, right? So I'm in this and I'm thinking, well, I know I can do this somehow. We can do this, but I don't know how. And it just as it so happens, my brother and his girlfriend came over and I told her about it. And she said, you know what? You should go see my good friend. His name is Wayne and he's a patent attorney and just see what he thinks. He's done a lot of med device and things like that. So I call this guy up and I say, can I come talk to you? He's like, sure. A couple of days later, I'm in his office and I'm telling him what I'm thinking about. And he stops me and he says, my mom, who was my hero, she had head and neck cancer and she was treated with radiation, and she lost all of her teeth because when you have severe chronic dry mouth, the enzymes that your saliva is making, you need that to keep the bacteria at bay, right? So they had to take all of her teeth out, and it was just this really traumatic thing for him. Of all the attorneys in the world I could have gone to, I find myself sitting here with Wayne, right? And he's had this experience with his mom. So he then joins my passion to do this. And this is a brilliant man. And he starts to work on a patent for me that I could have never begun to afford, let alone know all the nuances of what it would take to get intellectual property on a device. And honestly, that was one of the first of many, many, many serendipitous, divine, universal, whatever you want to call it, interactions with somebody who's touched this project, but he was the first who had personal experience, who had the passion to fix it, who saw my vision. And that was kind of the little kindling, or the gasoline that lit the kindling. And from there, I just didn't let anything stop that. I was just buying, my disease is called Sjogren's. I don't own the disease. Unfortunately, I have it. Sjogren's syndrome. I contacted their foundation. I bought a database from them. I put out mail. I didn't know what I was doing. Matter of fact, this is terrible and horrible to admit, but I remember looking back and trying to write one of the main doctors at a main hospital here in Michigan. And I had to look up, making sure I was spelling the word saliva right? Because we're a saliva management device. And, that's how humble these beginnings were. But it was only through this incredible energy that was attracting these people to come forward to help build this step by step by step. Baby steps some days, baby steps. Some days they were backward steps, but step by step by step.
Thanks for telling that story about Wayne and getting back into his office. I just want to camp there for a little bit longer because you're telling this story with passion, as you're talking to him, right? You're talking about what you're looking to build and how it's impacted your life and things like that. And then you mentioned it was kind of like this kindling, but tell me a little bit more about that feeling when he said to you, hey, this is something that my hero also experienced. And he starts telling you this story.
So affirming. Had I walked in there and he could have cared less and wasn't willing to donate generosity upon generosity and knowledge with me, who knows what would have happened? So affirming. So I'm in the right place. God has put me in the right place in this room. This is something that has to be done.
Do you feel like that was a pivotal moment? I mean, it sounds like you've described it as that way, but
I might have worked around it, but boy, it sure helped.
Probably gave you a little pep in your step, a little bit more passion when you're talking. And obviously
I was
now
like,
you're
wow,
telling
this really is really real. This is something that we got to fix. We're going to fix, it's simple. We'll fix it, By the way, I had no idea how or what.
Well, and then, obviously getting the patent and working on that process isn't something that just happens, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of, effort and energy. And, that then leads to other parts of the conversation. So after having that ball rolling, you got the kindling going, your fire's started, you're sending emails, you're starting to get the right people in the right places. What kind of traction were you able to get after that?
Well, at that time, not much. So first I had to build the thing. Mm-hmm. What am I even making, right? What is this thing even going to be? I know what it's going to do. What is it going to be? So I went to a dentist office and I asked for some mouth, those molds. Asked for some mouth molds, melted a wax figurine of what I was thinking I was going to do. They are not there anymore. I still live in the same house, but up at the corner, I had Carl's Hobby Shop. It was a hobby shop. So I went up to them and I said, hey, there was 2 guys working. I said, I need you guys to build me a pump. I want it to do this, this, and this. This is what I'm doing. I don't know why. These guys were like, yeah, let's do it. So the 3 of us are like mad scientists. And between the prototyping and this and that, all of a sudden now I have a prototype. And I'm like, cool, I got this prototype. Okay, so now what? It's a wax figure. So now what? So I just keep tracking down different avenues till I figure out, now I got a working one. So then I met a dentist who was willing to make me something. And now we got a working prototype, right? Now it's like, okay. So not only do I know that the community at large, because my questionnaires came back and everyone said if this device existed, they would use it, except for one. And I'm like, all right, this is good. We got an audience. We've got a prototype now. It works. still don't know what I'm doing, but it's working. But then one night I don't even know where I saw it, but it was Michigan was really trying to, in Oakland County where I live, they were trying to do a big push towards innovation in medical device. I know on the west side of the state, it's a big here, but it isn't so much over where I'm at. So I went to it, and they're all talking all these terms like, what is the classification? Is it 510K? I have no idea what any of this means. None. But I'm like, yeah, pretending like I know. I have no idea. That made me really realize there's so much more to this than I even know. And I just kept plugging away, step by step, learning. I'm by myself and learning. And I'm thinking this is really going to be a lot. And then I did something through an organization, and I don't know if this goes national or if this is in Michigan, but I just ask everyone who's got an idea, find your incubators in your state. Find your innovation centers through the colleges or through, different venues. Your big cities have all of them have these incubators. So I went to one at the University of Michigan, and it was a boot camp, and they made me justify my product and my market and would people even buy it? Can I even make it? And oh my God, it was 6 weeks of like torture. Cause
you're like, obviously,
remember, I can cut your hair, but I
that.
have no idea what else I could,
Yeah.
So I ended up nearly winning the contest. I came in second, which is okay. And from then on, I was like, you know what? This is going to happen. This has got to happen. This business was vetted so hard through this incubator, which I totally want to impress on people. Your ideas are great and they're wonderful, but maybe they aren't applicable, and maybe you'll come up with a better one. But that fail fast theory, right? They taught me that right away. And you could see the companies getting weeded out that just something wasn't going to happen. And you can always come back with something new or better. But really, I think that's a super important step, never to miss. That making sure before you spend your life and your life savings on something, make sure that you've got something that's not going to fail fast.
Yeah. And what you did too is you went out and you started talking to people and, asking for opinions and advice. And you mentioned surveys and things like that. And a lot of people too, they'll have this idea and they don't want to tell anybody, but I want to invest all my time, effort, and energy in it because it's going to work. Everyone's going to want it, but I don't talk to anybody about it, right? Yeah. You're keeping it all to yourself. And then
that's a tricky one, isn't it? It's really tricky for innovators to hold stuff to the chest because their idea is the latest, greatest, and best. But you have to share it. Inevitably, you're going to have to always share it. And that's super tricky. But my advice there is just share it. When you're that new, it's highly unlikely that someone at an incubator is going to run with it. Because let me just tell you, it's not overnight. It takes an incredible amount of money, grit, time to get something going.
And what was this time frame you mentioned? You're in that conversation with Wayne, and now you're in the incubator and you're having some of these feedback come from potential users of the product. Like what type of time frame are we?
Maybe about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, mind you, I'm still at this time I have 2 kids and I'm still working full time, and so it's dodgy. And then now I got to get the product made, and I'm thinking, how am I going to pay for that? So now I'm starting to realize that there's a whole fundraising component to this thing. And then I start worrying about that. So, it's about a year and a half, and it's not full time at all. Okay. And it's just me running it. And it's still a little bit of a not materialized. It's a concept. It's a proof of concept, but it's still floating. It's still floating out there as maybe something that would happen at that time.
And then the accelerator or the incubator that you had the opportunity to work with, how did obviously they helped you validate and weed out your idea and, give you some frameworks to work around, but were they able to connect you at that next stage when you're talking about fundraising and moving into, okay, now this is going to cost some money? Were they able to make some connections for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the Ann Arbor Spark group, and I'm not sure if they still do the boot camp. And they actually offered me the prize money in an office in their space. Unfortunately, at this time, my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I'm family first. So I turned that down because I want to make good on any money that anybody gives me. And I become now a caregiver, and as well as taking care of my kids, 2 businesses, my business and now this. So I did not. But they were so gracious and willing to help me to that next phase. Because now not only do I believe this, they're believing it. And so that's more ammunition, right, for me to move forward. But there, at that time, it's changed now. You could get funding through your state. You could get different kinds of grants and things like that. And my company very early on was able to get a few grants, SBIR grants and things like that. So that furthered my ammunition to think, okay, if the state is willing to give me, even if it's a couple $1,000s, like that, they're seeing something here too with this product. And it kept pushing it along. It kept pushing me along. But the life that I was living on the other side was kind of pulling me back because I believe you have to take care of your family first. And, so it was kind of it was another challenge. It was another time where life is pushing and you're pushing at life. So, the thing that starts to happen in this time of starting this business is money. The need for money becomes really apparent, and the need to go to your friends and your family and get them to buy into what you're doing and start to learn about fundraising and all of that. And if you've got early phase entrepreneurs listening, that's always something to really pay attention to and start working hard on, your investor deck and what the story you're going to tell. And if anybody needs help with that, I've been helped so much with that through my early time of starting this that I'd love to help others because it's a really important part. Sometimes
it almost
money
sounds,
stops us.
Yeah, it almost sounds like something that, I wouldn't say came natural for you, but something that you leaned into without hesitation. I mean, you mentioned, again, getting back into the patent attorney's office, jumping in and telling your story, going to the model shop, knocking on the door of the dentist's office. It didn't seem like you had fear to jump in and ask for
No, because remember, I could ask for a grilled cheese someone was giving me for free. And I actually asked for pickles every time too on the side. So I was born like that. I was born because I had need early on. And I think I don't have aversion to asking. Remember, we get grace by giving, right? So I believe that. I truly, truly believe that. And people that aren't going to want to spend their time and give to you, they're just not going to. And that's okay. But there are people that do. Like I'm someone that does. If someone were to say and I've actually just recently had a critical care neurologist physician contact me out of the blue asking if I would help her develop her project. It all is reciprocal. And not everyone feels that way, and not everyone might have the bandwidth or time. But I am a firm believer in asking, not selfishly. It actually allows somebody else to realize grace. And we have to ask. None of these cameras came from nothing. Everything came from something, somebody's idea. Nobody can do it alone. I've since built a team that can do all the things I don't know how to do. And we're all very highly passionate, driven people. But, that's what humanity is about. And that's what I wish we could kind of get more to is, raising each other up, right? So I didn't have any problem asking and joining organizations that would help me write that first. And I look back and I think, how did anybody ever give me a dime? I don't know. But that first investor pitch deck, I had people help me write that. They were asking me to write a pro forma. I'm like, a pro what? So.
For who?
Well, I said, what? So, yeah. So, you find these people, they find you. Remember that energy.
And I think that's a really good frame to put your mind into when you are afraid to ask someone for advice or for, some of their knowledge or even for a financial backing in your startup. Is that, that is something that they enjoy doing and they want to do. And there's a lot of people that are just afraid to jump into that because they don't want to inconvenience someone or they don't want to feel like, oh, I need you. And I think that that's important to keep in mind is that people want to help others. And, like you said, if they don't, they're not going to be in that room or it's going to be an easy no and you're going to move on to the next one. And it's going to be okay if they told you no.
And you don't take that personal. They just don't have that calling. Maybe they're just not even supposed to be in that journey with you. It's okay. You know, it is okay for people to say no to you. And it's okay for you to ask somebody to say no. I mean, if what you're doing is good and you are passionate about it, you believe in it, it's okay for someone to say no and just say to yourself, well, they don't see the greatness in this.
Hmm.
And it's nothing personal.
Yeah, exactly. And then as you're building out the business, you know, developing up the product, you're raising some money. What are some of the next things that have happened that you want to tell the story about?
Well, Wayne got me the first patent, which
Awesome.
was really exciting. So hats off to him. And I'm learning more about medical device, and I'm learning more about the hurdles. And I'm thinking, whoa. And someone that is invested in our company said to me, you know, I watch you do this and I just think, she did not read the playbook.
There was a playbook?
And I say, thank God I didn't. And I think I would advise people to not read the playbook too, because when you don't know what can't be done, you do it, you know? So at this point in time, I had an epiphany that happened. And so we're developing this. I'm working in this dry mouth group, and I'm thinking this device is going to push artificial secretions into these mouths. But right early on, and as we were getting ready to file that one patent, I saw a little boy in a wheelchair at a fair. I'm at a local fair. I've got my kids with me. They're healthy. Everything's good. They're running around. But I take notice of a young mom, and she has a son in a wheelchair, and he's got a bib on, and she has this wand, and keeps suctioning him, and he's choking, and his pump is really loud, and this is going on. And I'm seeing them, and it's just bothering me. It's just bothering me. I just don't understand things like that. I want this child to be healthy. I want this mother to not be burdened. It's really bothering me. And then I'm in another area, and there they are again. And I'm like, oh, geez, you know, this is just making me upset. And I remember my kids were on a ride, and I was just standing there watching her. And I just had this moment like, oh, Swick, at the time it was named something different. This device could probably pull secretions out of the mouth for kids like this. Let me see what I can do there. So I go back, I say, Wayne, put suction in there. I had no idea what I was doing. I don't even know why I did that. And then I went to the hobby shop and I said, guys, put this as to negative pressure. Let me see something. And it sure as heck did. And it pulled it out. So then I started looking into the world of patients that can't swallow. It's called dysphagia. 30 million people have that as well. 60,000 people die each year. Think of like watching a Lions game. That's a full stadium of 60,000 people. They're dying each year. Our healthcare industry is spending $30 billion on aspiration airway infections when people inhalate their oral secretions. So we got a massive problem in non-reimbursed infection. And it's an easier regulatory pathway to pull secretions out than to put them in. So I pivoted and I created SWIC for removing secretions when patients can't swallow. And that was a major turning point. That's when I really dug in and really realized that this problem hasn't seen innovation since 1907, when that wand that she was using was invented. And there's such a urgent and desperate need in healthcare for this problem to be solved, from senseless pneumonias all the way down to patient dignity and quality of life. And that was the turning point for there. I went on to file 2 more patents. I have now 3 patents on this device and all the different things it can do. Major market, both globally and nationally. And I feel like, not to leave the head and neck dry mouth people out of it, because they deserve it too. And eventually it will probably come a full circle. But it's just such an incredible need for this simple product to solve a big problem. And that's when I built a team, because I could not do it by myself. And that was in 2018. So this has not been fast, by the way, because I've been having tons of life coming at me and all these other things. But now we're really kind of cooking with gas here, and raised money. And now we can really say that we're getting established.
So 2018, what were some of those first hires? And as you built out this team, what does that look like
today?
So
I really did trick that high school friend, that brilliant one. I was cutting her hair, and she's so good at everything that I'm not. And I just asked her to help me with a couple things benignly, and batting my eyelashes, and it just sucked her right in. No pun intended. She's just been the cornerstone for us. One of the main people too that came out of it, as I told you, I believe highly that we meet the people we're supposed to meet and the energies align. And I had brought this to a manufacturer and wanted them to be part of it. And he very bluntly and brutally told me, no, I'm not interested. It's go ahead and leave. Well, she was at the table. Her name is Laura. She's our biomedical engineer and she's our regulatory officer. And she called me and said, right after I left in tears, and by the way, I had just had my third, well, I don't know. I had a kid small enough that I brought them with me and plunked them down at the table. And she said, meet me at Starbucks. And she gave me the address and I met her there and she said, oh no, this product is way too good. We're going to do this. And she's been with from that time too. And she helped me iteration after iteration till we get to where we are right now. Still works with us side by side. So that was a one team building. The other one is a trainer who just has the same heart for quality of life for patients that the rest of us do. Together we're a team of 4 females, all working moms, and that's the core team. Yeah. Lots of advisors and lots of really great strategic investors and it's really, besides the community of my salon, the community of the SWIC, I call it the SWIC family, is something I'm very proud of.
From what you've described, it sounds like you're hiring and very smart people that are very, capable in their jobs. But when you think about it, the way you described it, it was more like heart. You connected with people that also shared a similar passion, and were excited about what you were building or willing to jump in and, had, the passion, I guess is a good word, to jump in and just help you out with that and come alongside you more than you were out searching for a very specific skill, even though it seemed to match up from what you're saying, but you weren't out like, okay, I need to hire a, sales manager. Here's the job description. Let's post it out online. Now let's look through 12 different resumes, right? And let's interview them all. It was like, okay, I'm having this conversation. This person had a shared passion and we could tell that we could do something great together and brought them in.
That is absolutely it. How about I won't even talk to somebody without passion for this project? How about the fact that these people that have joined this journey do it for passion? We aren't even collecting paychecks. I mean, this is a sweat equity deal and everyone is passionate because, we'll receive letters from a caregiver ALS patient, of an ALS patient, and we've changed that we won't change the outcome, but we've changed the experience. And the people that are involved are so passionate and caring and like-hearted, and even raising money. There's good money and there's bad money, but I don't think I have an investor who hasn't really, maybe some of the early friends and family that are just kind of biding time, but investors that have come forward to now, everyone has become part of this. And I love that.
Yeah.
And it's more than just I have skin in the game. It's I have heart in the game. And like I told you before, passion equals profit. So like that heart in the game changes the game. So you're building a company. If you have this really wonderful idea and you hats off to you if you can do it alone, but likely you can't. You can't have every skill. I mean, maybe, but I know I didn't. You've got to surround yourself with people that aren't going to sink your boat. You've got to surround yourself with people that see your mission, believe in your mission. I mean, so much so that this team, I had to take some time off. I had something happen to me physically, and I was out for a good chunk of time. Not one ball was dropped, And again, they're not receiving paychecks. They're thinking we have a way to do a standard of care to elevate healthcare across many continuums, financially for healthcare system, patient, the caregivers, all of it. And everyone's driven to do that from a really simple little device. This is really interesting. And it's just so wonderful.
No, I love it. And how you're pulling passion, not only for yourself, but the rest of the team's pulling that in as well for the services and the, product that you've developed and the way that you're able to change lives. Now you've told us a lot about your background, your history, your story, kind of what's gotten you to the situation that you're in today and the influence that you're able to have. I'm curious, looking forward, like what are you most excited about as you look ahead?
Well, I'd love the day when I can see that this device, SWIC, has converted a standard of care, and it has changed the way something's done for the better. So of course, that's just the pinnacle, the top point of the mountain. But I look forward to the journey continuing to surprise me in wonderful ways. I look forward to the day where I can say my stubbornness paid off, where my children, the 3 daughters that I have, can see me in a more peaceful state. Where I have more peace, because that right now it's a lot. And I like to it's kind of like our lives are like reading books, isn't it? A little bit like, what is the end of this chapter? What is the end of this book? And I'm hopeful for really wonderful things to come. So, as I look forward to this, the goal is to change the standard of care, period. And that's probably if you're talking business, that's it. On a personal level, it's just being peaceful, just having peace.
I love that as you look forward and the things that you're excited about in the future, you brought up not only, outcomes or, a destination, but you brought up the journey challenging you as something that you're looking forward to, and part of like getting stronger as part of the journey, and knowing that, there's stories in this book that, haven't been written yet, and you haven't experienced yet. And no, I'm excited to follow along and continue to, hear your journey, Rebecca, as you continue through that. And I know it's going to be a successful one. Now, as you think back, and we're going to get into the last question here about what is your definition of success in a minute. But before I get there, as you think back to some of those, early on years where you were just coming up with the idea, or maybe, having some of those struggles that, were times where you're like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. This is difficult. What's one piece of advice that you would go back and give yourself if you had the opportunity to give yourself one piece of advice?
Trust whatever higher power you believe in. Trust that the journey you're on is the journey you're supposed to be on. And I'd have just a little bit more faith in myself. So early on, I would defer to people a little bit more than I do now. And for me, that was just always kind of been a little bit of a challenge for me to really trust in myself and my abilities, and not what you said is so true. And it's a big thing I'm working on. Not compare. I don't have to compare my intellect to anybody else. It's unique to me, and it's useful for what we're doing. I don't have to compare my financial situation to anybody else, because the financial situation I've been in and out of through my lifetime has given me drive, and it doesn't allow me to hold money as such a high reverence in my life. I've survived without it. I've survived with it. I'll survive either way. So money isn't the number one driver. Achievement and the goal is the driver, which is kind of freedom in a way. So I just wanted, if I looked back at me starting this, I would say, be sure not to read the playbook, because you aren't going to do it. And just give yourself a pat on the back, and don't compare yourself. If this takes you 10 years, it takes you 10 years. If it takes somebody 3, it takes them 3. It's the timing it's supposed to be. So that is something I would definitely talk about to myself.
Trust,
and lose the comparison, which is it's for me. It's a daily reminder that I have to not do that.
No, thanks for sharing that. And I think that reminder is going to hit home with a lot of people that maybe are experiencing that part of their journey today. So thank you for sharing that. Now, as we get to, wrapping this up, I just want to thank you again, Rebecca, for being on the Engineered Success podcast. I want to end with one final question. And you've alluded to some of it throughout your story already. So I think I have an idea of what the answer is, but what is your definition of success?
Boy, my definition of success is just, for me, it's just giving back. It's giving. It's giving back whatever gift you have, making somebody, it sounds so, Pollyanna and cliche, but it really is true. What can I do to serve somebody else to make them feel a little better, How can I do it? Even if it's something small, even if it's something big, but also, success to me, monetary success would be wonderful for sure. It's freedom, right? We all get that. It'd be silly not to say that it is, but peace, to have peace, to know that the day I go back home to heaven, I get a job well done, just peace, I think, and just peace in what I'm doing, peace for my soul, and just knowing that in this time I was here, I did a stab to make something different, hopefully incite other people to try to do something, because we are brilliant creatures and everybody's got brilliant ideas, and you're here for such a finite time. So try something. Just try it. You've already succeeded if you've tried it. You already failed if you didn't.
Love it. Thank you so much again, Rebecca, for that definition and for telling your story on the Engineered Success podcast. It's been great having you here.
I just appreciate you inviting me and letting me talk so much about my story, and ask if anyone listening wants to help with their innovation, or how to start it, or what to do midway, or how to approach it in any way. Feel free to contact me, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.